So it's that time of the year again, 31st of December, last day of the year. It's come around quick, man. But as it is tradition for me, I sit down at the end of every year and I review the training log and I try and make sense of what's happened. I try and make sense of the mistakes, the bad periods, the good periods. Try and make a sense of all this sort of stuff that's happened, and then try and make a kind of a plan of attack for the following year. I've been doing this basically for the last 7 years, and you learn stuff. You kind of slap yourself over the head when you kind of realize that you kind of keep making the same damn mistakes, but it's all part of the process. This kind of debriefing session, this kind of review process is very, very beneficial. And once again, it's proved to be beneficial again. So what I did yesterday, last night and this morning, I just basically went to the training log for the last year, month by month, and I try to kind of make sense of what was happening in each month. When you sit down and thoroughly do that, you kind of really realize what's actually happened. So I spend a lot of time looking at the training log. I go back to it all the time, but I don't usually go through it with kind of this detail often. And so I did it, and I can basically see the whole kind of process of the whole year. And some kind of timelines in my head were off, according to the training log. The training log doesn't lie. So when I make these training logs, when I jot down every workout, I basically write down every set, every rep. And then occasionally, if there's something to be said about how I feel or what I'm thinking, I write down kind of little bits of kind of like little blurbs or little summaries here and there. And so those that type of information is the most beneficial to me, because reps and sets kind of tell you what's going on, but they don't really tell the whole story in terms of what's causing those reps and sets. So this time last year, I sat down, did the same thing again, wrote down what went on that year, and I sat down and I basically wrote down what my goals were for 2021. And they were this: squat 230 kilos, bench 160, deadlift 260. So only one out of these three goals I achieved. Now, last year my max was 200 on the bench, 200 on the squat, 140 on the bench, and 220 on the deadlift. So no progress on the bench and some progress on the squat and very good progress on the deadlift. Now, when I make these goals for the year, a lot of the times I feel really good. So I kind of go through the whole training log for the previous year and I'm like, I know exactly what I got to do. And so I maybe overshoot my expectations. This has kind of been a pattern for me for the last freaking 7 years. You know, you can look back the training log and I basically make these kind of crazy assumptions that everything's going to go well. I'm going to have like crazy breakthroughs and whatnot, but it's not the case. So the focus for this year, by the way, this video is the second time I'm shooting this video. I was shooting it in the garage. Today is 36, 37 degrees. In the garage it's probably over 40. The phone switched off, gave me an error saying that it's too hot, switched off. So I kind of already been through this damn talk already. So I feel like I'm repeating myself. So every time I kind of have to do this, the quality of the video is, my thinking is not exactly how it was originally. So I feel like I'm kind of going through the same thing again, but it sucks, but it is what it is. You know, training today was freaking hard to train. It was so hot. I never realized the phones also had a thermometer within them and they can freak out or whatever. So it did, and voila. So anyway, last year ran through the whole thing, and the focus for last year was purely anterior pelvic tilt. I put that into kind of bold lettering, and I said the main reason why I'm getting this hip pain, and this hip pain has been going on last year, really get going, and I'll tell the story of that. And so I kind of identified the hip pain was a real thorn in my freaking backside, was a real hurdle in my training. And at that time, I kind of, in bold letters, put the anterior pelvic tilt is the cause of the hip pain. And so as a response to that, my focus for the following year, for 2021, was, and it reads, abs, hip flexors, and RDLs. And I certainly do that. I mean, in the month of January, hip flexors were all over the place. Basically, every single workout I was doing hip flexors. You know, the psoas curls, all that kind of stuff. I was really focusing on standing leg curls, standing knee raises. I was doing supine leg lifts, all sorts of stuff like this. A lot of other stuff were going on, and if you look back at the videos, I'm not sure if every single video in January was about that, but it was certainly, I can see in the training log, I did a lot of reps and sets, directly abs and hip flexors in the attempt to correct the anterior pelvic tilt. So at the end of that month, I can see that I started writing some ideas about, okay, this might not be working. The hip pain is still there when I go to 160, 170, 180. I can still feel something. Hip flexors is not doing the right thing. And so when one of the points that I made in the month of January is that I wrote, I don't think abs are strong enough to correct anterior pelvic tilt. And so I went over the fence and I tried to hit the other partner in this problem, which was the glutes and the hamstrings. So it's kind of like a lower cross syndrome. You have weak abs and you have weak glutes and hamstrings, and you have overly strong or overly tight lower back muscles and hip flexors, rectus femoris, things of that nature, quads. So I'm squatting every day. It only makes sense that the quads were kind of overreacting. So then I went, okay, hip flexors didn't address the issue. I still have the hip pain. So I went over to the GHDs, and this is where you'll see the GHDs. February and March, I was doing crazy amount of GHDs basically every day. I made a GHD kind of thing at home, with kind of makeshift type of GHD. And when I was doing, I was basically making a GHD for back raises. That's all I was doing on them. I wasn't doing the leg curl at the end as well. So February and March, I'm doing these GHDs. And then towards middle of March, the hip pain comes back when I start pushing heavy weight again. And so I get discouraged. I basically make an assumption, make a conclusion that the GHDs are not doing me justice. And I moved away from them and I went to lunges with the assumption of that part of the problem with anterior pelvic tilt is that you have this TFL. At this time I didn't know the connection, but I wanted to target these lateral hip muscles, glute med, glute min, and the TFL, your internal hip rotators. And so I went after lunges in the attempt to kind of do that. So I did lunges and I did that for a little bit. But once again, pain came back after 2 or 3 week period. So then in April, you can see how this is happening. It's crazy when I think about it. Like these videos that I make, it can sound like they're just freaking random. Some guy that's just running off his thoughts at will, kind of arbitrary kind of ideas. But this basically is like a progression, a character progression, evolution of somebody's understanding, somebody's mind, somebody's body, trying to basically work out a problem. You can see, I can see it, like I can look at it every day. I've made some notes here with this thing just so I don't have to flick through 50 pieces of paper. But you can see that as the exercises are coming and going, you can see what the thinking process was. Sometimes I don't make a full freaking paragraph or a full page paragraph about what I'm thinking, but you can see by the exercises what's happening here. And so in March, GHDs, hip pain, lunges, all that happened in March. And then in April, it hit me that the best training period I had the previous year in 2020, the first time I hit 200 kilos, what led to that was me doing basically a auto-regulated milk and squats program where I was doing the 20 reps squat program. So working with lots and lots of reps. Basically, there was a point I was doing it every single day. So I would work up to 100 kilos for 20, 110 for 20, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. So eventually I got to 140 for 20, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And during that period, my hips felt unbelievable. And this is when I got my 200 kilo squat for the first time. And so in April of this year, I was like looking at the journal and I was like, okay, hip pain was shit. Hip pain was shit back then as well. Let's go back to what's worked. Maybe my assumption at the end of that year to target the abs and now these posterior chain muscles, maybe this is the wrong thing. Maybe all I gotta do is high volume. And I certainly made a lot of videos about this around kind of April period. And then all of that led to, in May, me hitting a 205 kilo squat PR. So not even a year apart, I had 2 periods where I was doing a whole lot of volume, like high volume, like 20s. And during that period last year, I remember I was doing the bar for 50 as well in some of those days. So I was like really kind of running away with these high reps, sub 50, sub 40% kind of work. In June, oh man, I went away from high reps because in June, so June, July, August, kind of like they call the periods winter in Australia. And my son started kindy, started this year. And so what happens during winter in kindy? All the kids are snotty. My son's coming back sick. He's getting sick every other week. Every time he goes to childcare, comes back, brings a disease, brings a virus. My wife gets sick, I get sick, my daughter gets sick, we get good again. And then he goes back to childcare. And so it was like a weekly thing where I was fighting some sort of virus. It kept going and going and going. And so there was, in June and July, I got sick like 3 or 4 times. And so because of all of this that was happening, I was really happy doing the high rep work. But the high rep work I summarized as too taxing for my metabolism, for my body to fight off infection, super heavy metabolic kind of conditioning with the squats, and work. And it's also winter work. I'm working in emergency, lots of sick people there, COVID, all that stuff is happening. So I move away from this high rep stuff, regretfully. And so then I'm like, okay, I can't do high rep works. And so then in July, I started doing Bulgarian split squats. And this is when I started doing single leg stuff. I can't do high rep stuff. So let's do stuff that I can kind of do, some stuff that kind of gets addressed with high rep stuff. And this is where in the training log I wrote, nothing gets my quads as pumped as high rep work. Maybe this is what I need, just isolating the quads. And so in this period in July, I started doing Bulgarian split squats, sets of 10, sets of 5, loading them up. This is when I started talking about, you should be able to do, like bodybuilding.com started saying, I read an article there, lots of discussions about that. I remember back then, you should be able to do 80% of your 1 rep max on a Bulgarian split squat. Lots of discussions about that. Anyway, I started doing that, and eventually I realized hip pain came back. Here we go again with the damn hip pain. And then I went on leave. I went 2 or 3 week period leave from work, and somehow, I don't know exactly how this came along, but I got into pin squats. I think the exposure was, back in the day, I forget the guy's name now. Back in the day, the guy with the water barrels. Can't think of the guy's name, it's escaping me now. But I started getting into pin squats, and I did squats. I did 16 days in a row of 200 kilo singles. I did every single day, 16 days in a row I did that, which basically ended up with a 210 kilo PR. And that was as a result of pin squats. So pin squats in my log, in my training log, is circled a million times over. Excellent exercise. Come back to this. This has to be tattooed on your freaking brain. This is an excellent exercise. And I wrote down some of the beliefs that I thought were kind of associated with that: central nervous stimulation, core work, stimulating the core like nothing, quads, and also the mental side of stuff. If you can handle 300 kilos on your back, if you can rack it, walking out 200 is not a problem. And so pin squats were a big part in August. August is a very, probably the greatest training period of my life in terms of performance. It was an incredible run. 16 days in a row, I hit 200 for 1. Part of that part of that pin squat period, towards the end of that, I was getting severe lower back pumps. So much so that I couldn't really continue on with pin squats as much. And I started to kind of think along the lines of, how can I continue doing pin squats? How can I supplement pin squats? What is that what is that exercise that I can supplement, alongside pin squats that will get rid of the back pump while smashing the hell out of pin squats? Because pin squats are clearly doing something incredible to me and producing good results. And so then I go along the lines of leg raises again, core work again, basically the same stuff I was doing in January, but with a different focus. I had a focus of addressing the pin squats. So that was in August. September, also kind of the same stuff. That kind of could spill over to September. Did all of that. And then there was in October, there was a breakthrough of hip pain realization. So then I realized that the damn TFL and the glutes were related. They were related through a structure called the iliotibial band. When I realized that, I realized there was a connection between the pain, which is exactly over the TFL. If I was to get my thumb and shove it into the TFL, it's like, oh, that's the spot, that's the painful spot. And so with this realization that the glutes also insert into the ITB as well as the TFL, it occurred to me, okay, so if I'm squatting a whole bunch and loading that interior hip rotation and loading the glutes, not with volume, but with such severe tension, the glutes were getting really, really tight in response to this heavy loads every single day, training maxes, singles at 180, 190, 200. If I'm doing that constantly, and I'm not putting volume into the glutes are getting tighter and tighter and tighter and pulling the ITB out of whack, and therefore inflaming the TFL, because the glute is like this big, the TFL is this big, and a tug of war between those two muscles produces one inflamed muscle, one inflamed TFL. And so when I started addressing the glutes with volume, and the way I did it in October was with lots and lots and lots of reps, or with hip extension exercises. So, I went with deadlifts initially, rotated my feet out really, really far to really kind of incorporate the external rotation part of the glutes as well as hip flexion, right? Doing both things at once. And I started seeing the hip pain go away. And basically, end of September, start of October, I started getting real, proper pain relief and treatment. And right now I'm sitting here. Yesterday I went through a hell of a freaking workout, lots of volume, no pain whatsoever. So finally, 2021, August, September, that type of region, September, October, I kind of solved the hip pain issue. So I'm sick to death talking about the hip pain. I feel like it's gone over a year and a half, even longer, even before, 2019, man, I was getting inklings of it, didn't know what it was, didn't know how to address it. And I kept kind of beating around the bush. And then eventually when I got really serious with training and squatting every day, really pushing the volume, the pain got unbearable. I hit 210, I hit 200. And then there was a major regression of strength performance while I was kind of, fleeing away from the pain, trying to address it. It was basically a case of where I was going really good training period, really, really ramping it up, hit 200 and then a dump because of pain, regression of volume, regression of intensity, and then building up again. I would hit some sort of performance again and then dump again. So it's kind of like spinning my tires in the mud. And I feel like this year I finally worked it out, finally getting good volume in. And around September, October, I start hitting the shit out of posterior chain, and voila, basically I hit a 260 kilo within a few months deadlift. So I think in March, I hit a 230 deadlift when I was doing all those GHDs and whatnot. That was a 230 kilo deadlift. And then moved away from all that posterior chain stuff, reintroduced it properly in September, October, started doing all the deadlifts, and then 260 deadlift. So in this whole year, there's been 2 good periods of training, a whole bunch of distractions, sickness, all this sort of stuff happening, maybe 2 or 3 periods, and a whole lot of scrambling, trying to work out this hip pain issue. It is so tiring for me to kind of talk about it. And sometimes I don't like reviewing the log because I get frustrated, I get pissed off, because I'm basically back to the same damn conclusion that I had last year. Last year, I ended the year with, I need to do RDLs, I need to do abs. I went with abs first. Took me a whole freaking bunch of time to work out that I had to go back to the posterior chain. And I still stand by it. If you have anterior pelvic tilt, and if it's ripping havoc through your body, screw the abs. I want to say that, screw the abs. The abs are such small muscles. They're such small muscles compared to what the guys at the back are, the glutes and the hamstrings, that to address hip imbalance by addressing the freaking small six-pack muscle, it's not going to go well for you. You need to address the big dogs, the glutes and the hamstrings. That is basically the lesson here. It's all about the glutes and the hamstrings. I remember Louis Simmons talking about this you know, in my previous recording, I talked about Louis Simmons today. Louis Simmons basically said, if you're using your quads in the squat, you're screwing yourself over. Now he's doing a box squat. He's doing a squat where he's just purely using the posterior chain. But there's some truth in that madness. If you start getting overacting quads, if you start getting overacting hip flexors, one of the quads is a hip flexor, rectus femoris. The insert's freaking, it's a biarticulate muscle, so you can extend the knee and you can flex the hip. If you start doing too much quad work, like a squat everyday program is, you start getting in trouble with this sort of stuff. So you need to balance the freaking pull to push ratio. It needs to be heavily favored into the pull aspect of things. So RDLs, you can pick whatever you want, whatever suits your fancy. I had success with good mornings, with GHDs for a period. RDLs are my hot thing right now. They're feeling freaking amazing. And this is what I'm gonna write in super bold letters for next year. Live in the Romanian deadlift world. Live in there. Spend so much time. The harder you push the squat, you gotta push twice harder. Twice harder, you gotta push your pulling exercises, your RDL. So it's always gonna be 2 to 1, if not 3 to 1. That's kind of the way forward with me. In yesterday's video, I talked about volume. I'm bringing volume up again. Volume just can't be this arbitrary thing. You can't just make a dish, make a soup and be like, yeah, I'll smash 5 kilos of salt. No, there needs to be a concentration balance between all these things. And this is the trick of training. This is the trick of your body, working out what your body needs. If you have a different leverage, if your femurs are like this long, you might not have to do a lot of pulling. I have long femurs, so I need to do a lot of pulling if I'm to squat effectively. The most frustrating thing for me is that there are recurring strikes to my cerebellum, to my brain. Cerebral trauma when I read these damn logs and I'm like, you freaking idiot, man. Why didn't you connect the 2 dots sooner? But it is what it is. You live and learn, you laugh at yourself, you freaking cry to yourself, and you finally kind of work things out. But I'm gonna tie this video up. Essentially, I gave you a month-by-month breakdown of what the whole freaking year looked like. It's a crazy world for many different reasons. This is just my little world in the training log, my little problems associated with trying to get strong in the squat and the deadlift. That's the year of training for me. I certainly hope I'm going to have a much more successful next year. In terms of goals for 2022, I can sit here and be like, I want to get 300 kilos by the end of next year. And you can write whatever the hell you want to write in the book. Whether you're going to achieve it or not, it's 2 different things. I'm going to say by next year, I want to be able to hit 230. It was a freaking goal for this year. I want to be able to hit 230 at the end of next year. Bench press is something that I didn't train for like basically a good 9-month period, or 6-month period at least this year, while I was in this crazy period trying to organize my life, organize the hip so I can freaking do what I love to do most, and that's squat. So the squat has basically not had any love whatsoever. So this 160 that I set as a goal, I mean, that's not even a goal because I didn't go for it. The 260 deadlift is something that I'm like amazed. My body thanked me for addressing the damn weakness of the posterior chain with the 260 kilo. It just flew up. It started like, I was getting PRs basically every month. So for the deadlift, I'm gonna say, I don't know, like if I continue doing these RDLs, if I continue to try and work the RDLs to 220 for sets of 5 sets of 5 at 220, look, I would be surprised. I mean, I'll jinx myself. I will be surprised if I don't get 280 by the end of next year. So that's a 230 squat, 280 deadlift, 20 kilo increases for both. Let's call bench press also 160, another 20 kilos. So basically 20 kilos onto each lift. Hopefully I surprise myself and I go beyond that. But really, like this problem that I've had for such a long time, it's gone over basically 3 lots of these. So like this year, last year, and also the year before that, my understanding of all of this wasn't as it is right now with the whole TFL thing and glutes and the ITB. Like right now, I feel like I've found the nail and I've hit the nail on the head and I've identified the problem. Before I was like, Is it this? Is it that? There was a period when I was like dressing the calves, and I didn't even mention the calf period in all of this month-to-month analysis. But there was a period where I thought, maybe it's got to do with the calves. Maybe if I pump the calves and the hypertrophy of the calves would relax the muscle, the fascia of the lower leg, and I'll be able to get more dorsiflexion. And if I squat with more dorsiflexion, I'll get away from the hip pain. There was a time that I thought about that as well. Despite all of this stuff, frustration definitely associated with reviewing your performance, I'm still happy. I'm happy that I'm doing what I love. Whether I get to a 300 kilo or not, this is still a very enjoyable thing. It's an intellectual process for me as much as it is a physical process. So even though I might seem a little bit ticked off right now, because of the numbers, because of you're reviewing the same damn thing over and over again, it's positive. It's positive. I like it. I'm working towards it. Even if it's a freaking millimeter better every year, I feel like I'm better every year. And sometimes even if the numbers are the same year to year, but you're still working hard and you're still showing up, don't worry about the numbers. There are gains being had in your mind. You're understanding the process of training, periodization. Just because you are banging your head against the wall, against the periodization, against the gains wall, you're banging your head. You're eventually going to work it out. So even though these numbers don't look good to me, I'm still happy because I've made gains here. I've understood the human body. I understand what this body that I've been given, I understand a little bit more about it. And I think that's also something very, very, very important to understand. It's not just about the physical. The physical might be plateaued, and then you understand something, all of a sudden you pop up to the next level, basically because you connected a couple of dots up here, not necessarily here. And so that's kind of how I look at this. This is a really long video, but I can't end the video here. 2021 for me has been an amazing year. An absolutely amazing year. My life has changed because of all of this. Last year, I made a video, squat every day, 377. That video put in motion a series of events, which has basically led to 90,000 people following me, basically a year on. It's been an incredible year. I had 400 subscribers day 377. Now I have 90,000 subscribers. I never thought I was going to be in this position where I've got a community. I'm talking to all these people who are basically have this as well. They have their own little puzzles to solve. And we're communicating, we're bouncing ideas. The community is vastly all positive. Few guys don't get the idea of positivity, but the majority of people are good. So out of all these gains and misses and pains and all this sort of stuff, the most remarkable thing that I've gained this year is you guys. It is absolutely amazing to me to sit here and realize what we've created. It's absolutely incredible. So 2021, this year is going to go down in my life as a major blip on the radar, a major spike on my graph. This year has basically changed my life. I've decreased my hours at work to put more time into this so I can do this a bit more. Still working at the hospital, still doing long hours, but less frequently. And this is because of this channel. My passion for this has gone on for 7 years, and now I'm able to share it with 90,000 people. It's an incredible thing. So a video like this wouldn't be proper if I didn't just basically say thank you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your suggestions, your advice. Thank you for everything. I never thought an online community could be so positive. I always thought the majority of online interactions were trolls. And so I've been watching YouTube, man, since 2010. And I maybe left 1 or 2 comments in all of that time. Finally started a channel, and I'm like seeing these people comment, and they're all good people. And I'm like, where are the trolls, man? Why are the trolls not telling me I'm weak, I'm shit, I'm dumb, I'm all of these things. You know, well, I'm not being told this. I've had a few people, out of 90,000 people, there's a few people that just basically come in and just give me a good old spray. But you know, I'm 33 now at the end of January. So this is a different human being. I've got kids and a wife, man. Like, last thing I'm gonna worry about is some troll. But there is no trolls anyway. So this has been an incredible year for me. Not the greatest thing when it comes to this, but when it comes to this thing here, I'm sitting in my rumpus room here, next to a phone, talking into a phone. This wasn't the norm last year, man. I did videos, but nobody was watching them. Now I'm like legit thinking 10,000 people might see this thing, man. It's a freaking 30-minute video. I gotta wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this community. Without you guys, this video wouldn't happen. This video would be just me writing on a piece of paper, basically 500 words. Now I'm speaking these 500 words into a camera. And so this video is not gonna be maybe useful just for you, but it's gonna be useful for me next year when I flick on a video and listen to myself, what I thought this time, where I am physically and where I am intellectually and where I'm going with my training. So thank you. And I'm very, very excited about next year. I'm very excited about the training, the community. I'm very excited about all of this. COVID seems to be settling down. Bring on 2022. So this is the first time I've said 2022. Amazing. Anyway, guys, that's it from me. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.